Hello, and welcome back. Now we're going to move on to a part of the module that I think is probably one of the most critical parts of partnership building. I can't emphasize how important communication is in maintaining partnership relationships. In our last session, we learned about the partnership journey, and communication is so important at each stage of that journey. Just like any functional relationship in your day-to-day life, communication is key to successful relationships. We will therefore spend a little time in this session talking about some ways that can help you to effectively communicate your project ideas and your brand to any external stakeholders. Let's look at our journey map again. Remember, we started at stage 1. This is the initial consideration, where a partner is looking at a list of projects or organizations that they might want to work with and invest in. From stage 1, we go to stage 2, where they're actively gathering information. At this point, partners are evaluating the organizations that they know, what they stand for, whether or not they're in line with their values before they decide whether they're going to transact or not. The transaction stage, remember, we decided was step 3. And at this point, ultimately, the partner selects a project or a brand that they want to work with. And then the partnership relationship begins. But it doesn't end here. We move on to step 4. Step 4, as we remember, is that post-purchase experience. It's what happens after the partnership has begun. When they've signed on the dotted lines, it's an ongoing experience. What are the services that you're providing? Are you able to commit to what you said you're going to commit to? Are you delivering like you promised to? At this stage, communication is so key and very important so that the partner knows exactly what you're doing with their resources or whatever it is that they have contributed to your program. And then we decided from stage 4, we start again. And at this point, somebody who's already been in our circle is deciding whether or not they will continue to partner with us. And if they do, this brings them round to the loyalty loop. And we start that journey again. I hope that makes sense and you remember this. So, at step 1 of the journey, which is the initial consideration stage, you have to consider all the communication that you need people to know about your organization or your project. So questions like, what is your project about? How are you positioning yourself in the market? What about your project makes you attractive and makes people want to associate with you? What makes your project different from any other projects? And how are you effectively communicating this? To help you answer some of these questions, we have an exercise that's coming up shortly where you'll be tasked to tackle some of these questions. What you have on your screen is what we call a communications funnel, and it illustrates the methods of communication that can be used at each stage of the journey cycle. It's shaped as a funnel because the retention and value delivery is a lot lower in the early stages of the journey, although the level of communication is higher. Not everything that's listed on this slide, not every source of communication is listed on this slide, and not everything will be relevant to you. But you should know that there are online and offline methods of communication. And although you may lean strongly towards one or the other, you should ideally have a presence in both worlds. What do we mean when we talk about online communication? These are things like, where you go onto the internet, which is very popular these days, and you're talking about things like websites, blogs, Facebook pages, search engine optimization, mobile adverts. And when we talk about offline, you're talking about your traditional marketing materials such as billboards, flyers, newspapers, word of mouth, television, radio, direct mail. Some people think these things have gone out of fashion or are no longer being used, but you'd be surprised at how many people are still using offline methods of marketing. So, The funnel is arranged in the same way that the journey map is arranged, and it looks at the various ways that you can use for marketing and communications of your program at each stage. The awareness stage. Awareness will represent step 1. Consideration will be step 2 of our journey map. Transaction is step 3. And then loyalty is at step 4. And advocacy comes when somebody has entered into the loyal loop. So, at the active evaluation stage, remember, like we said before, the partner is considering all the information that they have about you. Have you ever gone online to read some of the reviews maybe or comments that people left about restaurants or any organizations that you've worked with, that they've interacted with? These days, everything seems to be digital and it seems to be there online. All you need to do is type the name of a company and the world's review will come up. All the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things will pop up. This is all about reputation building. What do others say about you? What is your community saying about you? Who are your ambassadors? And remember, the best ambassadors that you can have for your project are your beneficiaries. Nobody can tell their story like your beneficiaries can. What are you going to get out of these stories? And how are you going to get them out there? Are they on your website or on your social media pages? Are you telling your stories on radio or television? Or are you printing them in the newspaper or the magazines? Be creative and think outside the box about cost-effective methods to market yourself and your organization. Now, because we don't have much time to get into depth about each stage and ideas of how you can market each stage, I want to emphasize that stages 3 and 4 of the cycle are very important in order to convert your partners so that they become advocates of your project. The first 2 stages, of course, are important for acquisition and conversion of partners. That is, winning them so that they sign up to join you in your project. But you need to make their experience so pleasant that they will want to remain with you, so that they will be able to recommend you and extend their networks to you and spread the news about the work that you are doing. This will allow you to have more support, and it will allow you to have a deeper impact in your community. Some of the things that you need to think about will include emails. How often are you going to email these partners and tell them news about what you're doing? Perhaps you'll send newsletters. How creative can you be about those newsletters? What medium will you use to send them? Social media mentions. How often do you talk about your partners? When do you talk about them? When do you highlight them? Is it easy to find out who you're partnering with if you look on your website? PR and marketing. How are you going to do public relations for your partners? Then we have thank you letters, receipts, partner appreciations. You can never say thank you enough. I can't emphasize that. You can never say thank you enough. Get excited about thanking your partners. Do it as often as you can, as many times as you can. And make sure everybody around you, your staff, your team members, your beneficiaries, every time they get an opportunity, are thanking and mentioning your partners. Visit your partners, check in on them, give them the reports, do monitoring and evaluation in order to be able to report the impact of the investment into your project. Now, we're going to do a little bit of work. You should have a worksheet in front of you, and if you don't, this is the time to pause, look for it, and get ready to do some workshopping. Okay, if you're ready, we're going to answer some of these questions. Now, not all these questions are easy, and there may be ones that you've had to think about, but it's important, there may be ones that you've never had to think about, but it's important for you to think about them now. Most people who are working in communities or in smaller organizations often feel like they can get away with certain things because they're small or because they're doing good work. But at the end of the day, the truth is that you are in competition. People only have so much time, so much energy, so much money, and effort or resources to give away. They can't give to every project or to every movement. So you want to set yourself apart so that you're always ahead of other projects or other organizations that are chasing the same opportunities as you are. And to always ensure that you are the number one partner for all potential stakeholders. And this exercise will help you to do that. You're going to do a quick critical analysis of your communication for your project. You need to spend as much time as you need answering these questions that are on your screen. So I'm going to go through them very quickly so that I can explain them, and then you can pause and get on with answering them. Or you can always come back to the screen and answer the questions after you complete the module. So the first question says, what methods, online or offline, of communication are you using to tell others about your work? Remember, we went through this a couple of slides earlier on and explained to you online methods of communication are online tools, basically. So communication via the internet or digital communication. So whether it's email, whether it's a website, Facebook pages, Instagram, Snapchat, there's all sorts of amazing digital tools these days that enable you to communicate your message well. The second, and then offline communication, of course, is your traditional methods of communication. So those are like television, radio, printed materials, your newspaper, flyers, billboards, etc. The next question talks about how often do you communicate? So, okay, so you have, these strategies for communication. How often are you communicating? Well, how often are you planning to communicate if you haven't already started? How often do you post on social media? Is it going to be daily? Will it be weekly? And then thinking about how effective that is and testing to see whether or not it's effective. What messages are you communicating? Are you telling stories of beneficiaries? Are you telling, what approach are you using for communicating? Is it sad messages? Some people are like, let's sort of guilt our partners or our donors into working with us. Others are like, let's send a happy message and, project a fruitful, productive, and happy Africa, and maybe people want to invest. And then once you've done that, have you done an analysis of what method receives the most response and the most attention? This may need you to go back to your Facebook page and look at analytics, or go back to your website and look at analytics, or see, find ways to, do monitoring and evaluation of what's working and what's not working. I know that during the breadth of this course, you've been doing monitoring and evaluation as well. So from those, I think you should have ideas of how you can analyze what's effective and what's not effective. And then finally, what do you need to improve in your communications? You need to identify areas where you need further training or knowledge or systems, and, get to work in developing and closing these gaps. I always tell my younger brothers and sisters, I say, in this generation, if you don't know, it's because you're lazy. There's wealth of information available on the internet, YouTube, there's videos, there's, all sorts of things that are available to teach you how to do things. If you don't know how to use social media, you can find tutorials on YouTube, watch them, and get yourself educated. Let's talk about branding and creating value. You want to make sure that you build a powerful brand name for your project that people will recognize. When we speak about powerful brands, we're talking about, brands or names such as Coca-Cola, Kleenex, Colgate, Google, BMW, Red Cross. A brand is a promise. People associate your brand with what you have promised them, what you have said you're going to deliver. So, in order to build a powerful brand, you need to have a good value proposition. A value proposition is a promise of value to be delivered. It's the primary reason that a prospect should partner with you. It's a clear statement that explains how your product or your service will solve that partner's problem, how it's going to improve their situation, and it quantifies the value that you're going to bring to them. So it tells the ideal partner why they should invest in your program and not in the competition. So the things that we want to highlight there are your statement, your value statement must solve a problem. It needs to be relevant. It needs to have a quantified value. And finally, there needs to be a unique point of differentiation, something that makes you different from the other organizations. I'm going to help you to build your value proposition, but in order to do this, you need to think about some questions first. So look at your screen, and I want you to pause and spend some time answering the questions that are appearing on your screen, and then after, I can show you how to build your value proposition. The first step to building your value proposition is to ask yourself, why should my ideal partner with me instead of my competition? So firstly, I want you to identify who your ideal partner is. So think of your project, think of where you need help, and then think of anybody else who's doing something similar, or maybe something completely different, but also wants, the kind of partner that you want, whether it's a business, a university, or foundation, to partner with them. Why should they partner with you instead of your competition? What is the value that you're bringing to them? Pause and think about that, or rather write that down. Then when you've done that, I want you to compare your answer with the claims of some of your competitors. So this may mean maybe you need to go onto their website and think or see what value they're proposing for a potential partner, if it's available. So what is it that they're saying, and what are you doing differently? And then once you've done that, I want you to refine your value proposition. So what you wrote down in the first sentence to answer the first question, refine that value proposition until you can articulate it in a single sentence. So if you had just 10 words to describe why people should partner with your program versus any other program, what would you communicate? Then I want you to write that down. If you flip to the next slide, you'll see an example of a value proposition that we put together for the project that I work on. And you can get some ideas from that on how short it should be. So on your screens is a value proposition that we built for a project that I work on. This project is called the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and it's very similar to the Community Solutions program in that we bring leaders to the US for 6 weeks of training, and then they return to their countries in Africa. So we bring in leaders from 49 different countries of sub-Saharan Africa. And then once they've returned to their countries, we give partners an opportunity to get involved with them by partnering with certain aspects of the program. So in order to attract partners, we thought it was important to show businesses and show civil society organizations or governments that we work with why they should invest their resources and their time in Mandela Washington Fellows. So the value proposition is that the Mandela Washington Fellowship provides businesses with access to a growing network of the best young African leaders across 49 countries who are innovating cross-sectoral solutions to global challenges. You will see that this proposition answers, number one, the what. So what's the project? It's the Mandela Washington Fellowship. What does it do? What's its unique, unique selling proposition? Unique selling point, rather. It provides businesses with access to a growing network. So this is what makes us different. We give them access to a growing network of the best young African leaders across 49 different countries. So it answers the how, the who, the where. So 49 different countries is the where. The who are our businesses that we're working with. The how is we are providing access to a growing network of the best young African leaders. And what are they doing? They are innovating cross-sectoral solutions to global challenges. This is what we call the reason to believe. That thing that makes you say, oh, yes, that's what I want. And that thing is that innovation, the cross-sectoral solutions, and the use of the word global challenges. We've made it so broad and so beautiful that anybody who's thinking about partnering would jump at the opportunity to be a partner of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Now that you've seen an example of what a good value proposition looks like, why don't you do something for your project? Remember, you're probably competing with a project such as mine, because we are also solving community problems. So you want to build something that's going to sound just as good, and that's going to make a partner or a potential partner think, no, I don't want to put my money into the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I'd rather work with what this CSP leader is doing. So I challenge you, take some time and take your time to do this and build a good value proposition for your project. It will help you. It will help you when you're communicating. This value proposition is what you would use. It's almost like your 1-minute elevator pitch when you're talking to a partner and telling them why they need to be a part of your project. So if you build this and if you get it right, it will make talking about your project very easy. It will make communicating about your project so blissful and so easy, and you won't have any challenges going ahead. So take your time. Do this. It's important. Don't worry. You'll thank me. I'll see you later.